Ruby, come here. Come. This is a Ruby dog. She's a 1-year-old Border Collie. This is Stewart Pro Treat, 100% pure beef liver treats for dogs. The original freeze-dried training treats. You can get these on Amazon. She really likes these. I was giving her the chicken liver, which she liked, but I think this is, we call this doggy crack because most dogs just love it. And so can we get a sit? Sit. Sit. You're, I think, almost sitting off camera there. All right. So this is Ruby's roadmap to success. I was called in originally to help with her. She's a Border Collie, so she's got obviously some herding tendencies, and she nips at lunges at cars and bicycles, skateboards. I'm guessing too, things that people that run by too fast. It's just that's genetics for her. That's okay. Ruby, yes. Let's leave the camera there. There we go. How about a sit? Sit. Down. Down. Remember, always give her the treat first and say the command word after the treat goes in her mouth. So I started off by talking about exercise. The Guardians here do a very good job of exercising it. I think that we could split up. One of them, I think they gave a fetch for like about an hour, I think she was saying. I'd rather see 3 20-minute games of stretch rather than a fetch, not stretch, as opposed to 1 hour long set. Dogs sleep about, she probably is going to sleep close to about 16 hours a day. And when she's asleep, she's recharging her batteries. When her batteries are recharged, she wants to burn that energy, and then she goes to sleep and recharges the battery. So it's kind of a cycle all day long. Yes, I don't want you to lick my face because you do that in a very submissive way, and I don't want you to be submissive. I think overall, her major issue, from my perspective, is being a little bit lower self-esteem and not having as much confidence and kind of being submissive. When she meets new people, she flips over and rolls on her back, which is a very submissive posture. She'll spend up to 10 minutes licking her guardian's face, kind of like what she's trying to do right there. Now, a lick or two is fine, but if she's licking too much, then I would maybe stand up or do something. I don't want to chastise her, but I don't want her to keep on doing it. I don't want her to think that that's how she has to please me. She can please me by coming to me, sitting, laying down. We'll talk about those sort of things for passive training and petting with a purpose here in a minute. Exercising her before we go out on a walk is something most people never consider. One of the things you can do is go to the top of the stairs and throw a ball up and down the stairs or play fetch outside. Whatever it is, give her about 5 minutes of exercise, then give her about 10 minutes to rest. She's gonna wait for her to stop breathing heavy, then put the leash on, take her for a walk. By giving the dog some exercise before we go out on a walk, it really sets the dog up for success, especially if there's gonna be a lot of cars or things around. Now I'm gonna talk real quick about kind of the maintenance that I want the Guardians to use to stop this problem from getting worse. Now, like I said, she's a herding breed, and dogs' eyes are very attracted to movement. So fast movement is always going to attract a dog's attention, whether they're a herding breed or not. So I showed the Guardians a focus exercise. Now, if you forget how to do that, go to doggoneproblems.com, click on where it says Dog Training Tips. On the right side of the page, on a laptop or a desktop, or at the very bottom of the page, there's a search box. On a phone is the bottom of the page, second from the bottom. Type in focus. I've taught hundreds of dogs how to do this focus exercise. The reason I like teaching it, the way that I teach it can actually reduce the production of cortisol in her blood. And I'd like anytime you see her twitchy, take her away from whatever it is, get her to sit, get her to take a treat, and then start doing that focus exercise. Now at that point, you'll be at the 15-second mark that I'm going to talk about here in a second. So the first stage is 1 second. You sit down. I like to have the dog's head about right here, between my knees, and I keep my knees shoulder width apart. I have the treats on my knees, and I'm looking at the dog and I'm watching the dog's eyes. As soon as the dog looks up to me, I raise my nose and I go straight to the dog's mouth and I put it in the mouth and say the word focus. And at first it's 1 second, 1 second. Don't hold it at your nose. Don't go like 3 seconds, hold it here and then go back. That's what a lot of people do. Boom, boom. And then say focus after it goes in her mouth. So you want to do this until she's pretty much just staring at you the whole time. Then you go 1 second, 2 seconds for the second movement for all 12 treats. I do 12 treats typically each time I practice this. And make sure you practice in different parts of your house, upstairs, downstairs, living room, dining room, all over the place. After a while, then you can go, maybe the second time, maybe the third time, maybe you can go 1 second, 3 seconds. But it's not necessarily an extra second each time. It's based on the dog's dog performance. The dog has to look at you in the face the whole time. And it can be just like this. I don't have to reorientate my whole head and just be looking up at the camera like that. So the idea is we're going to, within 7 days, get to 15 seconds on this second movement. The one to your nose is always only 1 second. Once we get to 15 seconds, then we can do that 5 times in a row where she stays with us for 15 seconds while we slowly go to the treat and she's not lunging forward or leaning forward, and she's not looking away. The next step is to go and do this outside. When we're outside, there's distractions of just being outside. Don't do this when you have neighbors or kids playing or dogs out there or whatever, anything that's going to normally distract her. At first, we can do that eventually, but right now we want her to be able to focus on us. So any distraction is going to detract from that. So now we're going to go back. So take her outside, let her go sniff around and get her, get it out of her system. Then pull out the 12 treats, sit down to your chair and call her over to you once she's got her sniffs out. And then you go back to 1 second, 1 second. But now she knows what we're doing, so we can move faster. So it's 1 second, 2 second, maybe, well, let me back up. 1 second, 1 second for maybe 3 treats. And she's just staring the whole time. Then I go 1 second, 2 seconds for 3 treats. Then maybe 1 second, 3 seconds for 3 treats. And so on. So the idea is you want to get within 2 days outside where you can have that 15-second delay and she stares and waits and look at you in the face the whole time, doesn't look away, and doesn't try to lunge for it. The third stage is you're going to actually trigger this when you're outside on walks. So when you do this on walks at first, when you're teaching her, you don't want to have any distractions around. Eventually, you're going to use this technique to avoid distractions. But right now, while we're teaching her, if a car comes by or whatever, don't do this. Kids out in the street, don't do this. So basically what you do now is we're going to use a verbal cue instead of that. Right now, when we do it here is to get her to look at our face on her own. Well, now we're actually going to say focus. So she's walking, she walks on the left, and so we're walking down the street. There's no reason for her not to be able to, to be distracted. And I say focus, she looks up at me and go, focus. And I do this while we continue to walk. Don't stop. Everybody stops the first couple times, it's okay, but you want to do it while you're walking. Eventually you want to get to the point where you're like, focus, and she looks up at you, you go 1 second, 15 seconds as you're walking, and she's like running into things because she's not looking where she's going, she's looking up at us. So now, once we've achieved that, you want to get to that 15-second with about 2 or 3 days on walks as well. Again, you're building success on success. The next stage is once you've established this, then if she's stressing about something, you take note. I talked about in the video above of watching her eyes and not her eyes, her ear position, her head position, and her tail, and so on. So what we want to do is when you notice that she's stressed, move her, try to figure out what she's stressed about, move her far enough away where she'll sit and take the treat, and then practice this exercise. Now you're at the 15 seconds while the bicycle's there. But you've moved far enough away where she'll sit. If she won't sit or won't take the treat, she's saying it's too close. So now, as we're walking down the street and we see a car or a bicycle or something coming up, we say focus while it's way at the end of the block. She sees it, she looks up at us because she's been conditioned to do so. Say focus, and we hold it here, and then we turn and we walk up someone's driveway or up their garage or their the walkway to increase the distance between her and the street where the car or the skateboard or the bicycle is going to be passing. Now she's not looking at it, she's looking for the treat, and we're increasing the distance. So we're telling her, look, we're going to get you out of trouble. You don't have to nip at them, you don't have to react to it, I'm going to take care of it myself. Now eventually, after you do this enough, eventually you can start trying when somebody's coming down the street. And don't do it, it's going to depend on the intensity of whatever it is. So if it's somebody coming down with a motorcycle going really fast, that's going to be more responsive to her. If you have somebody driving a car pretty slow, like 5 miles an hour, that'll be a little bit easier. So what you do is when the car's driving up, you say focus, and she looks up at you, and you continue walking down the sidewalk and going like this. As the car's coming here, the treat's coming down. By the time the treat goes in her mouth, the car should be past you. And so now you redirect, she gets the treat, and she's like, all right, I can't lunge, it's already past us. So eventually what we'd like to do is help her practice walking past cars or bicycles or whatever it is without reacting to them. Now it's going to take some time and practice, and if she does lunge, you are too close, you push too close too fast, immediate increase distance, and try to repeat that process. Always try to end on a good one whenever possible. Now I think we're probably, and I'd like you guys to practice and get in a month, if you can walk down the street and get her to focus on you for 15 seconds and not lunging at the car or the bicycle or whatever, wonderful. If she still is, you can move her away and she's not as reactive, but she's still reactive, let me know, and we'll set up a 1-hour follow-up session. We'll do some counter conditioning and teach her that a car approaching is actually a good thing. Now again, it's harder with her because of genetics, but I've done it with a lot of herding breeds, so I have 100% confidence we can, but I'm more concerned right now with her insecurity and her fear and her stress. So to counter that, I talked about a couple rules that guardians can incorporate, simple changes like feeding her after the humans eat. Making sure and you don't have to eat a regular meal, just all you have to do is 5 bites of a chip or a cracker or whatever it is. And after that, then basically, then you give her permission to eat. If she comes over and sniffs it and walks away, as soon as she walks away, pick up the bowl and dump it empty, put the empty bowl back down. She doesn't eat again until the next meal. Now, she might do this a couple times at first, but after a while, she'll realize as soon as I walk away from the dish, the food disappears. If I'm hungry, perhaps I should eat it. Now, once you get to the point where she's eating pretty much consistently every time you put the food down, that's when it would be a good time to incorporate a snuffle mat. SNUFF, I think LE. And you can get to order those on Amazon. If you go to the Doggone Problems website and search for DGP training, a page of training supplies we like to use will be there. It's towards the bottom of the list. So a snuffle pad is a big, looks like an area rug, or like really more like a floor mat. And it's got really long, like shag carpet. You kind of basically bury her food in that, and she's got to hunt to get it. She's a smart breed. Border Collies are notorious for being smart, and they get into trouble if they're not stimulated mentally. I'd also recommend you get an Omega treat ball. It's an orange ball. It has a sleeve in it. You can feed food or treats out of that. She's got to nudge it just right to get a treat to fall out. So these things help the dog. Essentially, it's an analog for hunting for their food that will help slow down the eating process. It'll boost her confidence because she's earning it herself, and it's a very stimulating way for her to do it. You also might want to look into getting some puzzles and doing some scent games. Now, one of the things I recommended is that you guys hire Julie, our lead dog trainer, to come out and teach her to walk with a loose leash. Julie has accreditation in agility training, which I think she'd be great for, as well as scent work. Scent work is very stimulating for dogs and is very draining. So I would strongly recommend you talk to Julie about some scent games, because that can be a nice way, and that can be something you do before a walk as well. It's using a different muscle. Okay, so going back to the rules, the guardians should, another rule I suggest is having her sit before we open the door. Go to the door. She wants to go out in the backyard. Tell her to sit one time. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. So say sit once. If she doesn't sit, walk away and sit down in the area nearby. Make sure you're seated. Wait for 1 minute. Set a timer, because they'll go by too fast. They're not fast enough. After 1 minute, go back to the door and command her again. Sit. She has, again, 3 seconds to comply. She doesn't, I walk away and sit down, this time for 2 minutes, this time for 4 minutes, and for 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time. But as soon as her butt hits the ground, you fly that door open as fast as you can. After a while, she'll sit at the door as a way of saying, I'd like to go outside, please. Let me see. Other rules, make sure you don't go out, she doesn't go out the door ahead of you if you're going out at the same time. And then this isn't a rule, but I would recommend, there's 2 dogs that live next door. One of them's kind of older, a little bit grouchy. One's younger. I would like to have you walk her with the growly one. Make sure that you're walking all in a line. So befriend your neighbors, get them a bag of treats or something like that. Just, hey, we had a dog psychologist come over and he gave us some pointers. One of the things he said we should do is try to walk Ruby with your older dog. Would you be open to that? Sure. When do you want to do it? Well, the idea is when we do it, we want to keep that dog on a short leash and Ruby on a short leash with human, dog, dog. So we're making a line and the dog's on the outside. We don't let them interact together. We just go on a walk together. It doesn't have to be a long walk. Just around the block is fine. We're looking to do that multiple times. The idea is we want to give them a joined or a shared experience together. They're like, oh man, we both saw that squirrel. It would have been on if we weren't on these leashes. We both wanted to pee on the fire hydrant. Our stupid humans wouldn't let us do it. And so now they have kind of a common thing where they did something together, where it wasn't confrontational and there was no posturing. And then after you do that for a couple days, if they want to sniff each other a little bit, maybe let them play a little bit. Now be careful playing in their yard or your yard. You can sometimes deal with territorial pissings. So maybe it'd be better to have that dog in your yard versus the other way around. And I would like to have you having her play with the other dog. Whenever our dogs play on the other dogs, they become comfortable. They don't bark at them so much. Sometimes there can be tension if they just don't ever get to interact. And it's just being a good neighbor. So it's a nice way to have them have, I'm sure if they have labs, they probably want to burn some energy. You have a dog that needs to burn some energy, so it's a great combination. Just make sure it's a positive experience. We don't want to have the other dog putting its chin over her back. That's a domination move. And because she's a little submissive for other dogs, you have to kind of be careful. If the dog's trying to be submissive, we don't want her to roll over and do that belly up sort of thing with other dogs. If she does it a little bit, that's okay. But if she's licking the other dog's face, also trying to apologize, again, we want to try to, curb her away from that. So go over there, show her you have a treat and kind of lead her away. You don't want to disagree or punish her or do it for her. We just want to distract her away from doing it. And also walking them together is a nice way for them to kind of build that confidence because they get to know each other. So you might end up walking with the other one, but I would walk with them one at a time. Don't walk with both dogs. They live together. They're their own little pack. We want her to develop a relationship with dogs individually. Okay, we also talked about passive training and petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is she nudges you or barks at you or asks for attention. You're going to tell her to sit or to lay down. Don't tell her to shake. If she sits, within 3 seconds, put her on her chin and say the word sit and only the word sit. Don't say good sit or what a smart dog you sat, just sit. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, turn the TV on, pull out your phone, check some emails, play a game. Show her that I have other things going on. If we just keep on saying, come on, sit, can you sit? Come on, please, I want to pet you. Then she's the leader. And that's I think, related to a little bit of her stress and anxiety. So we want to teach her, hey, if you don't want to sit, that's no problem. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to do on my own things. After a while, she'll recognize I'm not getting the attention I want, and that'll be more motivated to want to sit. When she does sit, pet her under the chin, say the word sit, and pet her as much or as little as you want. At least one pet to his infinity number of pets. After a while, she'll start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. You better pet her when she does that, because that's a very proper, nice way of asking for attention. Avoid reaching over her head at all costs. Do not pet her on top of her head. You can pet her anywhere you want except for on top of her head. Even if you want to pet her, she's not nudging you, still make her sit. And if she doesn't, then again, she doesn't get the attention. After a while, she'll sit to prepay for that attention, pretty much consistently. The other, instead of jumping up and licking you, now you're telling her, this is something I like, this is a more confident activity for her to engage in, so it's healthier for her. Like I said, a little lick is okay, but the way she's doing it for longer than like 2 or 3 licks, I would stand up and just disagree with it. Don't punish her, just disagree by standing up and taking your face out of her reach. Then you could redirect her into doing some sit. So if she does come and lick you, stand up after like the 4th or 5th lick, and then tell her to sit. When she sits, pet her for sitting. Then tell her to lay down, pet her for laying down. Come over, get some toys, play with her. Do something to engage with her, but not with her. Think of the licking your face as kissing your butt. Probably don't want her to do that. We want her to do some more productive things. So we play fetch or something else that's healthier for her. And remember to use the watchword paycheck. If you suspect someone's petting without a purpose, say paycheck. That person has to stop petting, even if they did it right. Say sit. When she sits, pet her on the chin, say sit. And actually, when you flush the toilet, she stood up and I continued petting her. But thanks for reminding me, because I often forget to pet without a purpose. I also talked about passive training. Passive training is just recognizing her when she voluntarily offers the behavior that you want. Every time she comes to you, pet her and say come. Every time she lays down, pet her and say down. Every time she sits, obviously pet her and say sit. I would come up with a fun word for her to eat when she's eating out of her bowl. I would have a different word for the snuffle mat. I have 4 dogs. I say grub, chow, feast, and lasagna. Each dog has its own unique command word. I assign that through passive training. So Max, the dog's word is lasagna, for 3 months, every time he took his first bite of food, I said the word lasagna. And now I say lasagna, and he goes and eats his food. The other 3 dogs hear lasagna. It doesn't mean the same thing, because they didn't have food in their mouth when they heard it. Max actually uses the Omega treat ball that I talked about. When he does that, I call it soccer every time he licks up the treats. Now I put that down, and he nudges that thing around the room like he's Diego Maradona. So that's, again, he's working for food, making him feel good and comfortable and confident about it. So I look for a couple of different feeding toys, because being a Border Collie, she needs that stimulation. Let me see, what else? I used to say testify or recognize or reward if the dog's doing something that I missed. So if this is the dog and she walks up to me and I'm watching TV and the dog comes up and sits and somebody says testify, look over and just start petting her and say come, because she's standing. I assume she came and I missed it. So it helps us recognize when our partner might not be paying attention. Don't argue with it. Just immediately, if she's sitting, pet her on the chin and say sit. The more that we pet her for the things that we want, the more likely she's going to offer those behaviors, instead of offering that submissive behavior like laying on our back or licking our face. And remember, no punishment for those things, no chastisement. We just stop engaging with her. Use that operant conditioning. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we covered that you want me to talk about? I would definitely recommend getting some of these, because she really likes these. They come in different containers. I just find this, I think this is, 21 ounce is the best deal. And after the end, you'll have a bunch of dust at the bottom. That's great stuff to put in her food. So don't throw it away. That's like gold. So just sprinkle a little bit of that in her food. And then name all of her individual toys. Also teach her to go to her dog bed on command. So pull out one of these treats, throw it under the dog bed while she's watching. When she goes and licks it up, come up with a funny word to go to the dog bed. So I want you to think of a funny word for the dog bed, to eat food. You've already named all your toys, but anytime you get new toys, make sure you name them something funny. I also say agua every time my dog drinks water. I don't have to teach my dogs to drink, they drink. But it's just nice to be able to get them to do it. If I'm on a hike and there's a stream here and there's not going to be water for an hour, be able to say that. And it's a richer vocabulary. The more things, so every time she does things that you want, make sure you label it and assign a command word. Dog bed, eating, drinking, call it the dog bed upstairs, give it a different name, and different things along those lines. So the smartest dog in the world is a Border Collie that just passed away named Chaser. And so you might want to Google Chaser because he did some amazing things, but she also seems to be extremely smart. So I'm hoping that you guys will set up a training session with Julie. Julie can talk to you about Companion Dog Club, I believe who she was with, that does the agility training, because I think that would be a wonderful outlet for her to burst and release all that pent-up energy and feel really good about herself for excelling, and is with athletic and her body posture shape, she I think would do really amazing at it. All right, let's see if we can get her back over here and we'll wrap this up. Ruby! Oh, look at that, the magic word. Well, the magic sound. Ruby! Ruby girl! Ruby girl. Hey, there's my Ruby. Can you come over here and see how she's carrying her head low. She's moving slow. Her tail's low into the side, and she's a little bit hunched over. This is a time not to pet her. This is a time where you can lay your hand. And see how so heads up, set. Now I can pet her, but see how her ears are pinned back? So that's why that other video, make sure you start recognizing so you know what she looks like when she's in a good body mechanic, or when she's feeling insecure and she's insecure. We just touch, we don't pet. Well, I'm gonna let her kiss me because we're ending the video. This is Ruby, and this is Ruby's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. Right, Ruby? Sit. Give me the sleepy eyes, I love that.